Airbnb is a very hot and up and coming industry and helped me to generate over 7 figures. I'm going to show you 4 different businesses that you can start within this industry. First one is going to be an Airbnb sourcing business. Airbnb sourcing is a simple concept of finding property deals that investors like myself will be interested in take on either to buy or to rent, finding a deal that would suit well based on the experience you have in Airbnb, packaging that all up, and then you're taking that and then you're offering it to an investor for a fee of anywhere between, I want to say, £2,000 and £4,000, depending on the quality of the deal that you're looking to sell. Now, the things that are really great about this business is it's going to be real low barrier to entry for you. It only really costs that you're going to need are around compliance, so you need to be on some form of property redress scheme, which is around like a sort of £1,000. As on top of that, the profit margins are very high because beyond that cost, the only real cost you're going to have is your time that's put into that business. The downsides that I don't like about this is exactly that. You are exchanging time for money. It would be very hard to build like a multiple 6-figure or 7-figure business doing this because you're starting from zero every single month. Once you've packaged and sold that deal to a customer, you've started again. You've got to then find another deal to sell, but it'd be very, very hard to scale that up because it's really very, very dependent on you. The next business is going to be an Airbnb interior design and staging business. Something that a lot of investors and other people have in the Airbnb space is they want to get involved, but they don't necessarily want to be very hands-on. They don't know how to stage a property and to attract those high nightly rates and bookings. Now, if you have a background in interior design or if you've set up Airbnbs in the past, this is going to be very good business for you because you can charge anywhere between £400 to £600 per day to set up other people's Airbnb. This ties in very well with the sourcing business, and you can really create a nice wraparound service for your customers that's going to make you more unique in the marketplace. Now, the great thing I like about starting an Airbnb interior design business is, again, it's very low barrier to entry. As long as you've got the experience needed, or maybe you have a passion for interior design, this business is going to bode very, very well for you. This is something that a lot of people are wanting, but there's very, very few people in the marketplace that can actually deliver this properly with proper testimonials and so forth. It's a very good business if you have a passion for doing interior design in Airbnb. Things I don't like about this business is, again, very similar to the sourcing business. You're starting from zero every single month. Harder than in the sourcing business to acquire customers because you have to find people that are active in the marketplace. You have to find people that are taking on deals on a fairly regular basis for you to get fairly regular income. Something that I would do in order to counter this is I would speak to sources because they're going to be selling deals a lot more regularly and they're going to need some sort of interior design setup service. You can negotiate something with them where they get a referencing fee for every customer they sign over to you, and then everybody wins and you can develop relationships that way. I would also get very active in things like Facebook groups and get interacting with people that are in the property space and in the Airbnb space specifically, and that's going to help get your name out there, get your work out there. Next is going to be traditional Airbnb rent-to-rent arbitrage. This is the classic business model that most people will know about. The simple concept of renting a property from a landlord at an agreed rate with permission to put on Airbnb and then advertising it out on a nightly rate. This is a very, very effective model. It's been how I started out in Airbnb and managed to scale this to over 7 figures. Now, the reason why I like this business model so much, very different to the previous 2 business models, is you're not starting from zero every single month. The reason why this is so good is it allows you to scale to those multiple 6 figures and 7 figures because the money and the capital that you've outlaid, say 2-3 years ago, is still paying dividends 2-3 years later, providing that the contracts are all tightly wrapped up. This is how you're really going to create a scalable business. Now, the things that I don't like about this business model is you have to have an initial investment to make. A lot of people say this is no money down, you don't need any money down. It is low money down, as in you don't need to have sort of 50, 100, 250 grand like you would do in the buy to SA space, but you do need to have an initial investment. I personally had around £20,000 when I originally started my Airbnb business. It took me 6 years in order to save up that amount of money. And another thing that I don't like about this business model is you are very much at the mercy of the market. Your competition is directly next to you, so it is very, very important that you have USPs within inside your business and that you make sure that your property is standing out from that competition. Another thing, which is a top tip for people, is make sure you get solid contracts. You're only guaranteed when doing rental arbitrage to have the property in the terms in which is assigned in the first contract. Now, the landlord may renew, but that is not guaranteed. So you need to make sure when you're factoring your setup costs that you can recover and make profit on that initial investment inside of that contractual term. If you can't do it, don't do it. Now, the fourth and final business is going to be an Airbnb management company. Now, there are investors out in the Airbnb space that want to get involved in this, but all they really want is the profit. They want a vehicle which they can invest X amount of money, get X amount back in monthly cash flow, and they don't want to get involved in the day-to-day running of their business. That is where an Airbnb management company comes in. So they are going to be able to manage the property on behalf of the investor, charge a percentage of the revenue that is generated from that particular property, say anywhere between 10 and 20% of that revenue, and in turn for providing that, they manage all of the day-to-day running. So this can include things like cleaners, maintenance issues, guest communication, key management, and a few more things. And then you break all that down for the investor, and then you provide them with a payout at every single month, giving them a full rundown of everything that was involved in generating that revenue, minus the deductions, and then providing them with their profit. Big thing that I like about this business model is it's scalable. Very similar to the rent-to-rent model. You can scale this to multiple 6 or even multiple 7 figures using this particular strategy. And there's also very, very little risk associated with it. So if a property makes £1,000 in revenue, but the costs are £2,000, that might not be a great deal for the investor. The investor has to think about their options, but you're still making a revenue because you're still providing the service that you said you would provide, which is you're looking after the day-to-day running. You're not really giving the investor too much day-to-day operations. The downsides to it are you're not generating a ton of revenue per property. So you might have a property where you're having to manage a lot of the cash flow in that. So let's say it generates £2,000. There'll be a lot of costs you have to manage with that to make very, very little revenue back. So if you're making, say, 10% management fee, you're only keeping £200 of the £2,000 generated, but you have real times with managing cash flow can be quite challenging because there's a lot of revenue coming in, but you're not keeping a lot of it. Anyone that's run Airbnbs for a long time or for any period of time really will know that you might get a booking coming in, but you might not get the money for that for 10, 15 or maybe even 20 days. But the investor's not seeing that because that's your job as a management company to manage the operation. The investor are just looking for return. Now, for those people that are serious about taking their business to a new level and scaling to even harder numbers, really making a strong, sustainable business, I recommend that you do all of these models. I don't mean take on every single business all at the same time, but what I'm trying to do is explain to understand the sales cycle that you're going through. If you want to find Airbnb properties to take on yourself, you will have to contact agents and you will find deals that aren't always to your liking. So then you sell those deals on for a fee. When you're taking on your own deals as well, if you're starting with very little money, you will have to set those properties up yourself. Once you set up your first few, there's no reason why you can't set up an interior design business. Again, once you then get 6 months, 12 months, 2 years in, and you've built to 5 or 6 properties, you have now experience in which to start a management company. And what you start to do is you start to create a system where you can manage every single side of that investment cycle for somebody. This is how you start to create a real profitable and scalable business that people find desirable and people will be interested in investing in. This is the best way, I think, in which to build a proper Airbnb business. You can't have a one-pronged approach. Now, I would definitely recommend having that approach when just starting out. You have to develop that experience. You have to be able to start somewhere. But something that is very important is that you start to look at scaling towards those multiple things. If that is your goal, if you want to build a real profitable and large business where you're employing multiple people and you're really building a business that's to last, you have to start developing a multi-pronged approach. If you're interested in getting into the Airbnb industry as well, click the link at the bottom of this video. We'll take you through your free Airbnb Mastery Academy, where we're going to cover everything that you're going to need to get started in Airbnb for free.